They mocked her as Barren, but she shamed them in front of the whole village. Welcome to our story. Please subscribe to our channel. It truly means a lot to us as we bring you powerful African revenge and betrayal stories every week. Now, let's begin. Everyone thought Ada would walk into her husband's house in disgrace. They mocked her, whispered behind her back. Even her future mother-in-law called her a barren tree. But none of them knew that on her wedding day, in front of the entire village, Ada would bring the Okafor family to their knees. The drums were already beating when Ada stepped out of her father's hut, her coral beads catching the sun. To the crowd, she looked like a bride, but inside her chest burned. The village square gleamed, and rows of chairs faced the canopies where the elders sat. From the far end, Daniel arrived with his family in a slow, grand procession, with kegs of palm wine on some men's shoulders, yams stacked high, goats bleating against their ropes, and wrappers folded like treasure. Madame Esther Okafor walked in the middle, her head tie high and her mouth tight. She stopped in front of Ada like a judge in the marketplace. Madame Esther said, loud enough for the ululation to dip. You have a pretty face, but I hope you can carry children. Laughter rolled from the women around her. Ada kept her eyes on the dusty ground and then lifted her chin. Mama Grace, her mother, squeezed her hand. Breathe, my daughter, Mama Grace whispered. Don't let her words get to you. The marriage rites moved quickly. Ada carried the palm wine calabash to Daniel, her ankles shaking. Daniel's smile had always been disarming. It was wide and honest, the kind that made people forgive him even before he apologized. He drank the palm wine, touched Ada's shoulder, and the crowd erupted with cheers. But when Ada glanced past him, Madame Esther's eyes were sharp, suspicious, and stubborn. Ada smiled. She took her place beside Daniel for the marital blessings. The elders spoke. The women sang. Children danced in circles. And then, at the exact moment the final blessing ended, thunder growled far away even though the sky was blue. Some said it was a sign. Others said it was a warning. Ada felt only the weight of the day settle into her bones. The start of a life and the start of a war. Daniel's compound was a world of its own. A wide yard, with mango trees, a painted bungalow for the parents, and a newer flat where Daniel had prepared a room for Ada. Daniel's relatives overflowed the corridors, carrying plates, dragging chairs, and joking loudly. Madame Esther waited in the sitting room, a clean white handkerchief folded in her palm like a blade. You are welcome, she said to Ada, standing but not reaching out. In this house we rise early, we greet elders, we do not gossip, we do not waste resources, and we do not sleep when there is work. Yes, Ma, Ada said. As for children, Madame Esther added softly, we do not delay. Ada smiled and kept her voice gentle. God gives children in his own time, Mama. Madame Esther's smile was thin as she said, God also gives wisdom. A woman must know herself. Daniel tried to slice the air between them with laughter. Mummy, allow her to breathe today. It's our wedding day. Madame Esther sat back down. Still looking at Ada, she said breathe, but breathe well. That night after the crowd thinned, Daniel and Ada sat in their new room. The bed was new. The sheets smelled faintly of starch. A small bulb hummed. Outside, a baby cried in a neighbor's house, then quieted. Daniel loosened his wristwatch and leaned against the wall. I know my mother, he said. She will talk. She will push. Don't let her make a home in your head. Ada watched him. She had loved Daniel for the steadiness in his voice, the way he touched her elbow when they crossed the road, the way he always said her name like it mattered. There's something we must talk about, Ada said, her fingers twisting the edge of her wrapper. Daniel looked at her, attentive. Okay, go on. When we went for the hospital checks before the wedding, Ada began. He looked away quickly, then back at her. A small, practiced smile appeared on his lips. Ada, those tests were just formalities. Not all, Ada said. Her voice stayed soft. One was very important. Daniel pushed off the wall, crossed to her, kissed her forehead. Ada, please. Today is not for heavy talk. I love you. We will be fine. Ada nodded. She put the envelope back in the bottom of her Ghana Must-Go bag, beneath a wrapper. She did not have to open it. She remembered every word. She switched off the bulb, slid under the sheet beside him, and listened to the night swallow the room. The next morning rose with the smell of wood smoke. Pounded yam thumped from the kitchen. Ada woke up before Daniel. She wrapped a scarf around her hair and stepped into the yard. Ada. It was Chica, Daniel's younger sister, already tying a wrapper over a t-shirt. She was quick and pretty. Her laughter was always a little higher than needed. Come, let's wash plates before Mummy comes out. Ada rolled up her sleeves and joined her at the outdoor sink. There were piles of plates and spoons. Chica talked while they worked. Mummy says a new wife must show that she is strong. If you wake up before her 3 times in a row, she will respect you. Ada smiled. Thank you, Chica, she said. I will try. Madame Esther arrived 5 minutes later, her head tie perfect, her steps brisk. She looked from the plates to Ada's wet hands to the floor. Water is dripping, she said, frowning her face. We will mop the floor when we are done, Ada replied. By noon, Ada had greeted 3 aunts, served 7 plates of food to relatives that came around, and received 13 small instructions from Madame Esther. Don't lean on the counter. Don't leave spoons inside the pot. Don't laugh too loudly when elders are near. Don't wear slippers that slap the ground. It was not cruelty at first, only a steady rain that ignored where it fell. Daniel drifted in and out, helping with chairs, rushing to the cold room to buy ice, laughing with his cousins. Each time he passed Ada, he touched her wrist, a short, secret anchor. In the afternoon, Mama Grace arrived with a basket of fruit and a look that said she was counting Ada's breaths from the gate. My daughter, she said, hugging her quickly under Madame Esther's watchful eyes. Hope you are feeding well. Yes, Mama, Ada replied. Hope you are resting? Ada asked. Mama Grace snorted softly. Today I am resting by force. Then she lowered her voice. How is your mother-in-law's mouth? Still sharp, Ada said. But my ears are stronger now. Mama Grace raised her chin. Good. Always remember who you are. Ada did. She remembered the clinic corridors, white and echoing. She remembered the doctor's glasses, the way he removed them before he spoke. Mrs. Ada, he had said gently, your scans are fine. Your blood work is normal. But there is something your husband should discuss with you. Daniel had not come with her that day. He had said he was busy at the workshop. He would meet her later. She had nodded, then waited alone in the corridor with her hands tucked under her thighs to stop them from shaking. The doctor had paused. Your husband's test, he had looked at the file again, then closed it. He should be the one to tell you. Ada had thanked him, left, and walked all the way home, the envelope hot in her hand. She had not told anyone, not even Mama Grace. She had placed the envelope under her wrapper and waited for the right day. Now, washing the last plate, Ada breathed out slowly. She was not afraid of work. She was not afraid of her mother-in-law's mouth. She was afraid of what silence could turn a woman into. 3 days after the wedding, Ada and Chica knelt on the floor, shelling groundnuts into a basin. Madame Esther sat on the couch, counting some money from a cloth purse. Chica, she said without looking up, when you finish, go and tell Auntie Peace to bring the broom she borrowed last week. In this house, borrowed things return home. Yes, Mummy, Chica responded. Madame Esther's eyes lifted towards Ada. And you, she said, remove those beads. You are no longer a maiden. Ada touched her neck. The coral beads had been her grandmother's. Mama Grace had polished them with oil the night before the wedding. They were my grandmother's, Ada said carefully. She gave them to me for my wedding. Your wedding has passed, Madame Esther said. Remove them. Chica kept shelling the groundnuts, her eyes down. Ada unclasped the beads and placed them in her lap. Yes, Ma. Madame Esther smiled faintly. Good girl. When the basin was half full, a neighbor entered without knocking. It was Auntie Nkechi, a woman who assembled stories like baskets. She greeted loudly, sat without waiting to be invited, and launched into the news of a cousin's daughter who had delivered twins. To God be the glory, she said, patting her own belly. Some people marry today. Tomorrow we are hearing cry of child. God is still God. Madame Esther's eyes slid toward Ada. God is still God, she repeated. A slow heat rose along Ada's spine. She wiped her hands on a cloth and stood up. I will put water on the fire, she said. Wait, Madame Esther said. I want you to go to market with me tomorrow morning. We will buy herbs. Marriage is sweet when children enter quickly. Auntie Nkechi nodded, pleased to be needed. There is also that nurse at the corner shop. She mixes things that open the woman's body. Chica's shelling slowed down. Ada smiled. Yes, Ma, she said. We will go. In their room that night, Daniel stretched beside her, exhausted. My mother can be rough, he murmured. She believes pressure produces results. Pressure produces tension, Ada said softly. Daniel turned on his side. You are stronger than her pressure. Ada, watching the ceiling, said. Daniel, we need to talk. Daniel became tensed as he says, Ada, I will not shame you, Ada said. But I will not carry your shame either. He stared at her, then sat up, his elbows on his knees, face in his hands. For a long time he did not speak. When he did, his voice was a thread. The test, he said. The doctor said the count is low. Very low. He said there is a chance, but it is very small. Ada waited. He lifted his head. I wanted to tell you after the wedding. I thought that if we prayed, if we tried, maybe. Ada reached for his hand. I am here, she said. But I won't drink herbs for your secrets. Daniel's eyes shone. I will speak to my mother, he said. Good, Ada said. Please do it soon. The market woke up before the sun, sellers calling prices as if their voices could pull customers from the air. Madame Esther walked fast, while Ada was a few steps behind. We will buy bitter leaf, Madame Esther said. Also that woman's powder she mixes with water before you lie down. It works. Ma, Ada said. Daniel will speak with you tonight. About what? Madame Esther asked, distracted by a pile of tomatoes. No bruises. When you see bruises, you know a seller has bad heart. About children, Ada said. Madame Esther turned, her eyes quick. Children are between a woman and her God. Men just help, but women carry the weight. Sometimes men carry the problem, Ada said evenly. Madame Esther laughed and said sharply, Men are never the problem in my house. They reached a stall where a woman sat with jars of herbs, plastic bottles filled with liquids of various browns, and a single notebook stained with oil. The woman smiled without showing teeth. Mama, she said to Madame Esther, you have brought a new bride. Congratulations. Let me give you the one that opens. Ada watched the jars. She thought of white corridors and envelopes. The day was warming. A fly circled the lip of a bottle and landed, then flew off. Ma, Ada said. No, I won't drink that. Madame Esther stiffened. What did you just say? No, Ada said again, calmly. I won't drink that. The herb woman's smile did not move. She picked at a label, as if unbothered by money, walking away. Madame Esther's voice was low. You will not embarrass me, young woman. I won't embarrass you, Ma, Ada said. But the truth will. They both stood, facing each other as people moved around them with baskets and bowls. Somewhere a goat cried like a child. A woman laughed with her head thrown back. The world did not stop. It rarely does. Come, Madame Esther said finally, her jaw tight. We will not buy it. They both walked home in silence. That evening the compound felt smaller. The clouds gathered, and the wind pushed heat across the yard. Daniel came back from the workshop with grease on his fingers. Mummy, he began as they sat in the sitting room. There is something. Talk, Madame Esther said, folding her arms. It is not Ada's fault if there's a delay, he swallowed. There was complete silence. Chica glanced at Ada, then at her mother. The clock on the wall ticked like a tap, dripping. Madame Esther leaned forward slowly. Delay, she repeated. Delay from where? Daniel's mouth opened and closed. His eyes darted to Ada for air. Ada spoke. We did tests, Ma. Why? Madame Esther demanded. Which doctor told you to test before you even try to trust God? She turned to Daniel. You see what I said? This girl is too wild. Daniel's voice came out smaller than he intended. Mummy, the result is that your wife should drink water and lie down. Madame Esther snapped before he could finish the sentence. We are not the first people to marry. Ada took the envelope from her palm and placed it on the table. It made a soft sound, like a hand clapping once in a distant room. Mummy, she said, still gentle, please read. Madame Esther did not touch it. I won't read that. Then listen, Ada said. The doctor says my tests are normal. He says Daniel's count is very low. He says there are options. He says there is hope. But he says the pressure should not be on me. Daniel flinched as if the words had weight. Madame Esther stood up. Get out, she said to Ada, pointing at the door. Chica gasped. Mummy, I said get out, Madame Esther repeated, her voice shaking. You brought paper into my house to insult my son? You came here to remove my joy? Get out. Ada felt the room tilt again, slightly, like a basin tipped then steadied. She looked at Daniel. He was frozen, his eyes wide, his mouth parted, the boy in him visible under the man's face. Mummy, please, Daniel said. Tell her to go, Madame Esther said. From today, she will not sleep under my roof. Ada lifted her chin. I will step out, she said. But understand me. I am not leaving because I am guilty. I am leaving because I will not swallow your shame and call it food. She took her bag and walked to the door. Chica jumped up. Ada? It's okay, Ada said softly. It's okay. I will go to my mother's house. When we are ready to speak like people who love truth, you can send for me. Madame Esther's hand shook in the air, then dropped. Let her go, she muttered. Let her carry her pride to the street. Ada stepped out into the yard. The wind lifted dust around her feet. She felt light. She felt heavy. She felt like someone who had just placed a pot on the fire and walked away before it boiled over. Behind her, Daniel's voice rose, tangled with his mother's. Chica's voice tried to make a bridge between them and failed. The sky pressed closer. The first drop of rain hit Ada's arm, startling and cool. She held her bag tighter and began to walk. Mama Grace did not ask questions when Ada arrived at dusk, her hair damp, her eyes dry. She opened the door wider, stepped aside, and said the simplest welcome in the world. Come inside, my daughter. Ada placed her bag down and exhaled for the first time since morning. The lamp on the table made a small circle of light. The kettle hummed on the stove. A pot of okra soup sat covered, still warm. Eat first, Mama Grace said. Words are easier when the mouth is not dry. Ada ate. The soup slid down her throat like forgiveness. When the plate was clean, she told the story from the afternoon, the market, the herbs, the envelope, and the command to leave. Mama Grace listened without interrupting. When Ada finished, she sat back and rubbed her hands once, slowly, as if warming them before a task. You did well, she said. I did not raise you to hide under a bed because a shadow passed the window. Ada's laugh broke and mended in the same second. Mama Grace reached across the table and took Ada's hand. Marriage is not a market stall, she said. You do not price and go. You live inside it. But you do not live inside a lie. If they want the truth, they will come. If they want war, they will find you ready. Ada nodded. I am tired of swallowing things that do not belong to me. Good, Mama Grace said. Rest tonight. Tomorrow we plan. Plan what? Ada asked. To stop this story from growing legs and running wild, Mama Grace said. If we allow them, they will paint your face on the gossip wall and call it a mural. Ada smiled despite the ache. Mama, where did you learn these expressions? I have lived, Mama Grace said simply, and stood up to clear the table. Daniel came the next morning with shoulders that looked like they had carried water all night. He stood in the doorway, not sure if he should enter fully, not sure if he was still a husband if his wife was not under his roof. Mama Grace looked at him, then at Ada. She stepped aside. Two of you should talk, she said. When she had closed the inner door, Daniel sat on the edge of a chair and kept his eyes on his own hands. I am sorry, he said. I should have spoken earlier than now. I should have stood between you and her words. Why didn't you? Ada asked. I grew up learning not to make her cry, he said quietly, and it became a reflex. Ada watched him and asked, Do you love me, Daniel? He looked at her then, properly. Yes, he said. Yes. Then learn a new reflex, Ada said. Protect me. He nodded. I will speak to her again. He exhaled. She said things last night, things that are hard for her to swallow. She thinks I am bewitched. She thinks city doctors hate our family. And what do you think? Ada asked. I think I have a problem, he said. And I think there are ways to try and resolve the problem, he smiled sadly. I also think my mother would like to turn water into wine with her mouth. Ada's smile was small, but real. We will try, she said. Daniel wiped the sweat on his face. There is more, he said. What? Ada asked. He sighed and continued. My mother spoke to Pastor Paul last night. He said the first months of marriage are fragile. He said we must be careful of scandals. He said I should bring you back, and we should pray. Ada nodded slowly. Prayer is good, she said. But prayer is not a broom you use to push dirt under a chair. Daniel winced at the image. Ada, I will come back, Ada said, surprising even herself with how steady it sounded. But on my terms. Daniel's eyes lit up. Which are? A meeting, Ada said. With everyone. Your mother. Your aunties. Pastor Paul if he wants a chair. We will all talk. Daniel blinked. You want a family meeting? Yes, Ada said. Tomorrow. Daniel stood up, relief and fear wrestling on his face. I will arrange it. He reached for her hand. She let him hold it. It felt like holding a rope thrown from a boat in water that was not yet calm. The next evening, they met in the sitting room. Pastor Paul arrived in a white shirt, his Bible tucked under one arm, his smile wide and careful. Auntie Nkechi came because she attended everything. Chica sat near the doorway, ready to slip out if things got intense. Uncle Peter, Daniel's father, quieter than his wife, yet solid as a wall, sat on the far end of the couch, his eyes on his knees. Madame Esther took the central chair. "Let us pray," Pastor Paul said, and they did. His prayer was full of doors opening and enemies failing and cups running over. When he ended with a loud amen, the room set it back with various levels of conviction. Daniel cleared his throat. "We are here to talk about the truth," he said. No shouting, no pointing at each other. Madame Esther sat back, her lips tight. Ada placed the envelope on the table again. "I will say this once," she said, her voice calm enough to make Chica's eyes widen. "I am not Barren. We did all the tests at the hospital. Mine are fine. Daniel's count is low, very low. There are options suggested by the doctors that can help. But I will not drink herbs, I will not be insulted, and I will not carry a blame that does not belong to me." Auntie Nkechi inhaled sharply, then remembered to exhale. Pastor Paul rearranged his face into pastoral neutrality. Uncle Peter's eyes widened, then dropped. Madame Esther looked at Daniel and said, "Tell her to be quiet." Daniel's jaw moved. "Mummy, it is true." There was silence, and then it began. "Impossible," Madame Esther said. "My son is not such. That's not possible. My son is perfect and too good for you." Pastor Paul tried to lace his voice with wisdom. "Sister Esther," he began, "sometimes God allows." "Allow what?" she snapped. "He did not allow it for his father. He did not allow it for his grandfather. Our men are very strong." Uncle Peter spoke for the first time, quietly. "Esther." She turned to him, surprised. He seldom used her name publicly. "What?" she snapped. "Listen," he said. She took a deep breath and faced Ada again. "Even if this paper says what you say, even if your city doctor wrote English, it is not a wife's work to announce it. A good woman covers her husband's shame. A good mother does not turn a daughter-in-law into a mattress for her son's shame." Ada replied. Pastor Paul raised a placating hand. "Let us be gentle with our words." Ada nodded. "I am gentle, but I won't let her shame me." Madame Esther laughed and asked, "So what do you want? You want to stand in the village square and shout Daniel cannot? You want to paint a signboard?" Ada looked at her, and the answer arrived in her mouth as if it had been waiting at the door. "I want peace," she said. "But first I want safety. I want to set a boundary so strong that even gossip will bounce off it." "How?" Auntie Nkechi asked, despite herself. Ada reached into her bag, brought out a folded sheet, and placed it beside the envelope. She tapped it once. "We will do counseling with Pastor Paul. We will follow a medical plan. And we will sign an agreement here, now, that no one will mention my name and Barren in the same sentence again. If anyone does, I will take this paper to the Elders' Council and ask for a public apology in the village square." Chica's eyes went round like cowries. Pastor Paul blinked. Uncle Peter coughed. Madame Esther stared as if the chair had turned to stone under her. "You will what?" she asked softly. "I will ask the elders to gather," Ada said. Pastor Paul found his tongue. "Sister Ada, public matters are for people who love public shame," Ada said. "I prefer peace. But I will not starve so that someone else can appear full." Madame Esther stood up slowly. "You have the nerves to threaten me in my house." Ada stood up too. "I gave you a choice in your house, Ma." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Uncle Peter, whose silences always held more than other people's words, reached for the pen on the table. "Give me," he said. "I will sign it. Truth is not poison." Pastor Paul breathed out. "This is wise." Chica's smile lit and dimmed quickly as she said, "I will sign as a witness." They looked at Madame Esther. She stood with her eyes wet, and her pride crashing against a wall it had never met before. Finally, she sat up. Then, she picked up the pen. Her signature was small, but steady. She pushed the paper back towards Ada, her voice in a whisper. "I will not forget this day." Ada's mouth curved, as she replied, "Neither will I."
Subscribe for more stories.